Very good morning, everyone. Welcome to WSO2 Con Asia. Right, hope you can hear me well. Right. Okay, so this session is about designing an enterprise API management architecture. So starting with myself, I'm Pubudu Gunatilaka. I'm the head of architecture for API MBU. So I look into the architecture and design considerations when it comes to WSO2 API Manager software version and also Bijira, which is our cloud offering. So let's look at what we have to cover in this lab session. So there are few objectives in this lab session. Basically, I'll go through the core API management concepts and architecture patterns, and then we'll look at API designing, governance, and how we do AI integrations. And I have a hands-on experience session where I'll cover basic API management functionality, and also I'm extending the API management architecture, where now we have the MCP servers where you can have all your AI integrations, where you can build AI agents, things like that. So in this session, I'll cover API gateways, developer portals, the security, API lifecycle, so basic concepts and some core concepts within the API management landscape. And we'll look at multi-tenancy, high availability, and CI/CD, and also we'll cover WSO2 Bijira with a long API Manager software version, the features and the things that we have done around this. And as I mentioned earlier, I'll be covering a live demo on the MCP server management, where we extend the enterprise architecture to AI agents as well. So if you have any questions and any issues, please interrupt me at any time. So I can answer the questions, and I want to make this session more interactive. Right, so let's start with a quick intro into WSO2 API Manager. So this is 100% open source software covering the full lifecycle management. So we have the API security, governance, policy management, workflows, and basic capabilities. And also we have the monetization, analytics, and observability capabilities, where we have other third-party integrations and in-house solutions as well. So, and one of the key advantages in WSO2 API Manager is the extensibility that we have within the software itself. It can cater your requirements with the extension points that we have. Right. So this is one product. One is open source, and the other one is the SaaS offering that we have. So if you take the WSO2 API Manager, we have the WSO2 API control plane. That's where you have all your functionality with related to controlling aspects. Then we have three main gateways at WSO2. So WSO2 Kubernetes gateway is a Kubernetes native, which is powered by Envoy proxy. So that is mainly focusing the Kubernetes infrastructure. Then we have the immutable gateway, which is an offline edge proxy, where you can run in a more isolated manner scenarios. Then we have the universal gateway, which is our standard gateway, where we have inbuilt mediations, and also it has protocol support, where it brings a lot of protocols that we have, if you look those protocols in the industry today. And also we have extended our architecture to bring other API gateways, where we are looking at the API Gateway Federation. So in the current version of API Manager, we have the AWS Gateway, where you can use the control plane and create APIs in the AWS Gateway. And also we have the Solace broker, which is an event broker, which you can use to do async API based API creation as well. So we are extending this architecture to bring more API gateway federated gateways as well going forward. So we have started those efforts as well. And the Bijira is our cloud offering when it comes to API management. Right, so let's look at the component architecture. So starting from the top, you have the identity access and management, where you have the user logins and the key management aspects. And if you come to the control plane side, you have the basic portals. So we have portals covering the API publisher, where you create APIs, and then you have the admin portal, which is the administrator capabilities you can find there. And then you have the developer portal, which is a discovery portal for all your APIs, specifically targeting the app developers. So then you have the control plane APIs, and we have the developer tools. We have the VS Code plugin for APK, which is our Kubernetes gateway functionality, where you can create declarative artifacts. And then we have the CTL command line tool, which you can use for your CI/CD needs. So to migrate APIs from one environment to other, like dev to prod, dev to QA, staging likewise. So then coming to the data plane side, you have those gateways that I explained earlier. So and these gateways basically connects with your backend services, your external API providers, and also this is where all your external clients, consumers come and basically use their apps with the gateway for API invocation. So this is the high-level overview of API management in a one pane. So we have the observability analytics tools as well. I'll cover those in the coming slides as well. Right, so let's look at the business use case. For a demo purpose, I have used the Grand Union Bank use case. This is a financial institute serving retail, corporate, and digital banking sectors. Although they have a solid internal infrastructure, it faces challenges like they need to enable secure third-party access to their services, and also they want to look at how they basically go and do AI agent integrations, where they want to have more consumer-based applications in the AI era. So as a solution, Grand Union Bank basically wants to adapt the multi-tenancy architecture for the departments they have. So I'll go through that, and then also they want to look at utilizing MCP servers in AI agent integrations. So this is the high-level idea. So there are departments, right? Retail banking, digital commerce, marketing and customer engagement, wealth management, and then you have the web and mobile applications, and also you have the end users and also the partners who want to basically consume these APIs and use their Grand Union Bank APIs in their application development. So just to go through the demo, I have basically come up with the personas, which covers the personas in the API management software that we have. So we have 4 key personas here. API developer is the one who develops the API for the services. And then we have the API product manager, who basically manages the API lifecycle, documentation, and ensuring quality and security standards. Then the API consumer, which is the application developer, who basically wants to consume these APIs, who basically come and discover the APIs from the developer portal. And then finally we have the admin, who basically do the user management and system administration. So this is a high-level architecture for this use case. So in the control plane, you have the basic API publisher, developer portal, analytics, admin portal, and the key manager functionality. So API developer basically interact with the publisher, and also the product manager interacts with the publisher, admin interacts with the admin portal, and consumer interact with the developer portal. And at the data plane, that's where you run all your services, and also the API gateways to basically, API gateways sits very close to the microservices for your traffic routing capabilities. So then you have the web and mobile applications. Right, so in the first demo, I'll basically go through the first tenant. So I have basically categorized Grand Union Bank into several tenants based on their departments. So if I start with the retail banking, they have set of API proxies that they want to create. So fund transfer, loan management, so these are some of the APIs that they have. So in the first demo, I'll quickly go through the end-to-end flow for you to understand the user behavior and how these different personas get engaged in different stages of the life cycle of API management. So I'll log in into the publisher portal. So I have a API management deployment. Now I will log in as Larry, which is our API developer, and he's logging as a under the retail tenant. Right, so these are some of the pre-created APIs based on the scenario that I explained. So before I go there, I'll basically, now as the first stage, I'll create a API from the open API definition I have. So when I go here, I have, I can basically create API. So I'll start with importing open API definition. So the idea here is that let's say you have the account service which holds your backend capability. Now we want to expose this backend service as an API. So this is where, as an API developer, you start creating your API for the account service. So you can load the open API definition. So this gives you some idea about any issues that you are having. Now I can click next. Now I'll call this as account info API. So I'll provide some metadata here, and this has already generated like it. This has so my service resides in Choreo. So this is the backend service endpoint. So when you come here, you have a gateway selection. So you can deploy to universal gateway, you can deploy to Kubernetes, or even if you want to go with a federated gateway like AWS gateway, you can select this. So for this demonstration, I'll go with the universal gateway. So this will create a API proxy. So this is the overview page where you can get an overview of your API. Now, when it comes to development, you have two sections: portal configurations and the API configurations. So API configuration is mainly for you to look at from the gateway point of view, look at how your API function. So if I start with the runtime configuration, right. Right, so I'll start with the runtime configuration. So when I go to the transport level security, you can define whether you need to expose this as HTTP or HTTPS. Then you have the application level security, whether how you want to secure these auth to basic code, API key likewise. And then you have the key manager configurations. I'll come to that in the next demo. So then you have the basic capabilities, course configurations, schema, validations likewise. And then if you go to resources, this is where you can basically put a rate limiting configuration for your API, and also you can also add more resources to your API. And if I go to the definitions, so this is the Open API definition, where you can improve this as well. And then you have the endpoint section. So the endpoint section, I have a HTTP basic endpoint here. Now if you take the endpoints, we have the capability options where you can have a dynamic endpoint, where you can even have a mock backend endpoint, or even you can have a AWS Lambda endpoint, or even you can provide a sequence as a backend where your sequence holds the backend logic as well. And then you have the scopes, where you can have scopes for authorization purposes. And then this is where you have the policies. All your policies are listed here. So I'll add header policy. I'll call this as XAPI, and I'll give a header value as WSO2. So likewise you can add policies to your API request flow. So if you go through the policy list, we have payload level policies where you can do JSON to XML transformation, and there are some troubleshooting policies as well, which will help you to log the API requests and troubleshoot any issues. And there are certain stuff that you can basically enable for your API to do any mediation. So in addition to these policies, also you can bring your own policies as well, where our platform is very extensible and where you can come up with your own policies as well. Right, so I have added a request flow policy, and I can also add response and also the fault flow as well. Right, so I'll save this API. Now if I go to the so the properties is again some additional properties you can set for the API for other purposes, like to understand and use these in your integration purposes. And then deployments is where you can basically deploy the API to the gateway. So I'm going to deploy the API. So what happens is that it will create a revision, and it will get deployed to the API gateway. So you can make changes the way you want and create a new revision. I can say new change, something like that, and I can create a revision, and then I can select that revision and deploy it. So it also provides you to roll back this particular revision as well and roll back to a previous revision as well. So this will help you to understand what are your changes, and if there are any issues, you can easily roll back to previous revision as well. Right, so the tryout is to basically try out the API functionality. Right, so I'll try out this as well. So this gives some response from the backend service. So this is the basic API developer functionality, and also you can look at the compliancy as well. So right now I have two policies where it looks for the governance aspects. I'll cover the admin functionality. I'll log in as a admin. So this portal basically allows administrators to log in and do the admin functionality. Right, so this has rate limiting policies. You can bring new policies, and also you can define the gateways, and also categories, organizations. This is for sub-organizations. I'm not going into details. So I'll show you the governance aspects where rule set is a basic building blocks where you can define the rules the way you want. So this is based on the spectral rules. Spectral is a governing language or a linting language where you can specify your rules and it will validate it. So I can create a rule set here, and then I can create a policy. So in this policy I have this API consumption rule set. So likewise you can create a policy as well, and then inject this policy through your all the APIs in the system. So when I go to the compliance dashboard of the admin, so it gives you some idea what are your violations and basically how your APIs are doing. So this will help you to understand how your APIs are behaving, how your APIs are authenticated. Likewise, if there are APIs without any security, likewise you can get more insights from this dashboard. So if I move to the this publisher side compliance, so this is pending in the pending state. So right now, right. So this this is the publisher side compliance. So now this has one error here, and then it gives you some idea that let's take this one. So it has two warnings, like you don't have an API tag, you don't have any business owner email. So likewise it gives you more idea on what are your issues and how you need to fix it. So I'll add a API tag and also a business owner email. So just to do that, I'll log in as a API product manager. I have another use called Emily. So the product manager's role here is to basically productize the API, add documentation, add relevant details, make sure the API is compliant with the relevant stuff, and then finally basically you can push the API to the developer portal so the external consumers can discover the API. So I'll add a tag here. I'll add the finance tag here. So I'll save it. So this is the portal related configuration. You can give a description, you can give access control, and even you can provide GitHub URLs, Slack URLs, so that you can show these URLs in the developer portals. Right, then if I use a business owner email, let me put larry@grandub.com. Right. So then as a product manager, you can select the subscription plans you want to have for this particular API, and then you can look at the documentation. So this is the auto-generate documentation. So other than that, you can add your own docs for this API. And also comment section is where you can add comments to your API, and so that these are available in the developer portal. So as the last step, it can basically, you can push the API to the developer portal. So if I go to the overview, basically you can see the flow in the publisher is completed right now. So let me check the compliance. So this will take some time to get the results. So there are two ways where you can apply compliance. You can even block the compliance, block the API in different life cycle stages so that we don't allow the API to proceed, or otherwise you can just go with a notify mode where it will provide you a notification and it won't block this particular API. Right, so I'll go to the developer portal. I'll use a new session for this. So this is the developer portal. So when I come to the retail tenant, you can find all the APIs that are related to that tenant. So I'm going to log in as a API consumer or application developer. So I'll log out first. I have logged as a admin. So here this portal lists all the tenants that are there in the system. I'm going to select Grand UB. So I'm going to sign in. So I'll use David, who is our application consumer or application developer. So I'll log in. Right, so this is the API. Now the developer portal scenario is that you can create an application for the use case that you want to go with. So I'll create a new application as account app. Now I'm going to subscribe to the API that I just created. So I'm going to subscribe here. Now I can go and create a token. So this API needs O2 token. So in order to do that, I can generate a access token here. I can so this generates consumer key secrets. You can generate an access token from here. I will copy that. And then if I go to the API, I can basically validate whether my API is working or not. So I'll paste my token here. I'll look for the accounts that are available there. Right, so I'll get a 200 response. So this is the basic flow when it comes to developer portal. So this is the end-to-end flow. If you consider this in a API management lifecycle where you start from a service, then you expose that service as an API, and then you productize the API and push it to the developer portal, and then the application developer comes into this developer portal, discover the API, and then use this API in their application development. So this is the basic idea. So I'll show you the compliancy scenario as well. Now if you check this compliancy, now I have followed the API consumption rule set as I added tags, and also I added business owner email as well. So likewise you can apply governance as well. Right, so this is what I wanted to cover in the demo 1. So any questions before we start the next segment, where I'll go through advanced capabilities and also the design aspects?
Hi, my name is Feza Rajbali and I'm from Mauritius. I just have a questions regarding the API subscription. So let's say David has already subscribed to an API, and then as a publisher, I modify the API and do some changes and publish again with version 2. So what happened to as a consumer? Does he get the version 2, or is he still stuck to version 1?
So if I rephrase, your question is about when you introduce API versions, whether you need to subscribe or not.
Yes.
Right. So as a API provider, when you are bringing a new version, you can select whether you need to keep the existing subscription for the version 2 or whether you want to allow new subscription for the version 2. There is a selection at the API publisher level where you can make that selection and work with that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Right, so we can also take questions at the end as well. Okay, right.
Hi, my name is Vidya. I'm from Ansel. You have shown like during this API publishing, there is a normal level of approval, right? Level of approval. Approval level.
Sorry, I didn't get it.
Like someone has to approve the API, right?
Yeah.
So how do you notify that the API via email, or how do you notify to someone who needs to approve that API?
Yeah, so you can use approval workflows, and I think in some cases we send out emails, or even there is a extensibility where you can plug with an email service or whatever the notification mechanism you want to apply there, and with that you can notify the administrator that there is a change. Did I answer your question?
So we need to have this SMTP integration with this API publisher gateway, right? SMTP integration for this email notification for this approval. Am I right?
So those are not clear for me. SMTP. So you want to do
is it a default configuration, or we need to have a separate integration with this SMTP gateway for notifying via email?
So I think you can do certain integration within the gateway itself, but if you are to use complex integrations, our recommendation is to take that to the integration layer itself, where you can use MI for that as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. I'll start the next section. Right. So in this session we are going to look at designing enterprise architecture, basic concept, and what are the design patterns that you want to have in this case. So if you take the API management landscape, we can identify several use cases. So the first use case is about internal API exposure. So this is mainly basically you want to expose your services as APIs for your internal teams and the developers. This is mainly targeting the modernization aspect, where you want to modernize your application services and your entire architecture. And the second part is about exposing your APIs for your partners, which is B2B. So this is to basically build an ecosystem around your partners, around your entire domain, so that your partners, your third-party suppliers can get involved. And the third one is about B2C API scenario, where you can expose your APIs to other third-party consumers. It can be your community. So the main target here is to monetize your APIs and have a revenue aspects. And then you have the emerging use cases where it covers IoT, AI, ML, and event-driven systems as well. So this will make sure how you basically secure and utilize AI services, how you use real-time system integration. It can be event-driven architectures likewise. So these are some of the use cases. So this is the high-level use case pattern you can find in any API management landscape in today's world. Right, so I'll start with some basic concepts just to cover, let you know how you basically apply these when we are designing enterprise API management architecture. So multi-tenancy is one of the key aspects where you can isolate your multiple users, organizations, or the departments, as I showed in my demo, where you can have a separate publishers and then you can have a separate developer portal for your department users as well. And then API versioning and revision is again a key concept. So if you want to make changes to your API which has backward incompatible changes, then you have to make a new version. That's the best practice basically. And then API revisioning is basically you don't need to have backward incompatible changes. You can just have, it has to be a compatible changes. Whenever you are in a particular version, you can make changes to your API and deploy to the gateway. As I mentioned earlier, you can even roll back to certain revision as well. Right, so API security is one of the key aspects where API security can apply at several stages. Authentication, that's where how you authenticate the O2 API keys, basic code. Then the authorization is again provide you an idea whether the user is authenticated, whether he has an access to particular resource likewise. So it will go for a fine-grained access controlling mechanism. And then finally you have the API protectors where you can have cores and also payload scanning, schema validations, likewise you can have different stages. So one of the key consideration is that we have to make sure you have the authentication end-to-end that can be client to gateway as well as gateway to backend. So with that you can make sure that there are no security vulnerabilities within your API ecosystem. Right, so key manager extensibility is one of the aspects. So if you take today's world, you may be using some of the key managers or the identity access providers right now. Maybe you are using WSO2 identity server, maybe using Okta, Auth0, Ping Federate likewise. So the idea is that you don't need to stick with a one key manager. Just bring your key manager and plug with WSO2 API Manager and authenticate your API request. So that's the high level idea. And if you don't see your API authenticator here, you can even bring your own connector and plug your third party key manager as well. Right, so let's look at the deployment architecture. So if you take the API Manager deployment architecture, this has two sections, the control plane and the data plane. Control plane basically contains all your control portals and all your control APIs like analytics, key management, admin portals, those capabilities. And then you have the data plane, as I explained earlier. That's where all your microservices and all your API gateways reside. And then mobile and web applications are connected to the data plane. So there is a high level idea having this control plane and data plane separation. So the first idea is that you can deploy the control plane in a separate Kubernetes cluster while you have data planes in a different Kubernetes cluster, or even you can have a VM based deployment as well. So with this separation you can make sure you migrate from VMs to Kubernetes. That's where we can find this pattern very heavily. And even if you want to bring resiliency for your APIs system, this is where you can check for this kind of a pattern. And also this pattern can be extended to a scenario where you are looking for regional pattern where the control plane can in US data plane, while the other data planes that you have can reside in US, Europe, Asia likewise. So this will bring you more resiliency to the system, and also you can have a focus setup for the region-based users. And going beyond that, we have seen this pattern as well in our customer setups. So the main idea is now with today's world, you can't basically rely on a one mega cloud vendor. So this will ensure that if there is an interruption to your AWS data plane, you can still serve the traffic from your other data planes that are there in Asia or GKE or GCP likewise. So the control plane, so the main idea is again here is that without the control plane, gateway still can function, but if you are to create more new subscriptions, likewise you can't do that, but still you can serve the API request in this pattern. Right. So all these architectures, we have to look at the scalability considerations as well. So one key aspect is that based on the demand, based on the peak hour load, you have to make sure you serve that traffic. So having an independent component scaling is a key factor where you can scale your gateways, you can scale your control plane and other functionalities, and even you can have high availability and also have auto scaling policies in a Kubernetes like HPAs likewise, and also you can go for a caching mechanism that are there in the gateway itself, so that you have a more performance and the latency considerations. Right. So far we discussed on centralized API management, where we have a centralized API gateway, but when it comes to centralized gateway, there are few issues with that, where centralized API management struggle, where if there is a disruption to that gateway, you lose the entire thing, and there can be considerations where in some cases you want to give more resources for your APIs and things like that. So that's where we have the decentralized API architecture, where you can group certain APIs and have a separate API gateway. So you can deploy separate API gateways to serve this traffic. So with that you get team autonomy, faster innovation likewise. These are some of the key aspects. Right, so API analytics and monetization again are key aspects when it comes to API landscape. Now we have the MOSIF as an analytics solution, where we merge MOSIF merged with WSO2, and then we have the elk-based analytics solution, and then we have the Choreo analytics, and even we have the solution for Datadog, OpenSearch. Even we can plug with your any analytics solution that you have in the industry. And monetization is another key aspect, where if you want to monetize your APIs and get some revenue for your APIs, with the analytic integration where you get the stats and also integration with the billing engine, you can basically monetize your APIs. And we are basically expanding our monetization capabilities with the MOSIF, so that you can do a lot of stuff within the MOSIF platform itself as well. Right, so going to the API observability, so the metrics, logs, traces are some of the key considerations when it comes to observability. This will help you to understand how your APIs are behaving, what are their issues, and this will help you to troubleshoot your APIs and understand and pinpoint the issues in the APIs. Right, so in the next demo, what I'm going to look at here is that I'll move to the digital commerce tenant where I have some APIs, and then I'll show you how easily we can plug a third-party key manager like Auth0, and also how we can see analytics information in a more SIFs as well. So first I'll log into the publisher. So I have this similar user in a different tenant. I'll call this tenant is digital, so I'll log into that publisher. Right, so in here I have 3 APIs. So what I'm going to do here is that I'll create a new API from the open API that I have. So I'll start by just creating a API. I'll quickly go through this. I want to cover the MCP server stuff where we have new capabilities. Right, so I'll quickly I'll go through the runtime configurations where in the application level you can select the key managers that you want to have. Here I can say I want to authenticate this particular API with Auth0 or even with the resident key manager. So I'll show you how easily we can log into admin and onboard third-party key managers. So if I go to the key managers, if I click on add a new key manager by just selecting a type, so we have several support when it comes to key managers. So you can provide the well-known URL and it will basically populate all these configurations, and then you can add your keys and set up your Auth0 as a key manager. So this is the flow that you have to follow. And now what I'm going to do here is that I'll deploy the API. I'll log in as a product manager. In this case, Emily is the product manager, which she will log in and basically push the API to the developer portal. So this is the API. Right, I'll go to the life cycle and push the API. So now we can go to the developer portal. I'll use, I have to log in as a separate application consumer. So I'll quickly log in here. So I can select the tenant. I will sign in. I'll use the David. Right, so this is the API. So similar to the previous scenario, I'll create a merchant tab. I'll subscribe to the API I just created. Now I can basically go to the Auth2 keys, and here I can see my Auth0 as a key manager. So here I'm going to give my audience here. So I'll provide the audience of the API here and generate keys. Right. So the keys are now generated. These are coming from the Auth0. Now I can generate an access token here. Now if I go to the API and invoke it, So basically what happens is that the gateway will check with the auth0 for JWK's information and then validate the API token, and then it will serve the traffic. Right. So I get a 200 response where now this has validated the token. So this is the high level idea how we can basically take third-party key managers and add to the system. So we are similar to API Gateway Federations. We have these key manager capabilities as well. And logging into the MCP side. So I have integrated this particular tenant to send all my API analytics information to MCP. So here you can see different charts for different scenarios where you can look at from the product point of view, even custom success, where this will help the custom success engineers to figure out if there are any issues. And this is from the engineering side of, and this is from security and sales. So the high level idea is that you can customize based on your needs and come up with your analytics dashboards. So this is more extensible version, and you can have more insights and help. This will help you to understand how your APIs are growing, what are their trends likewise. Right, so that's about the second segment when it comes to API management. So any questions? I think I can take one questions and then start the next segment where I will covering the MCP server stuff. Right, so I'll go through the next segment. Now, if you look at the egress API management, I think this is the high-level idea what you see in a API management landscape when it comes to API traffic. You basically have ingress APIs, egress APIs, AI APIs. So the ingress APIs are mainly on the traffic that comes from you, from the web and mobile application to your services that you have created. So this is the mostly used ones. And then the other ingress part is that there are external APIs, external services, and you may have written services to consume these third-party APIs. So this is more about egress side of things. So the third-party APIs can be accessing Salesforce, Shopify, Instagram likewise. And then you have the third segment, which is AI APIs. Now with all these AI services coming into the picture like OpenAI, Mistral, Llama likewise, you need to make sure your services that consume these AI services are handled properly. You do the governance, you do the monitoring likewise. So that's where the egress gateway comes into the picture. Now having the egress AI gateway is one of the key aspects in here. You are not just authenticating your AI services, and you have to basically look at what is the business use cases you can achieve from the WSO2 AI gateway. So when it comes to WSO2 AI gateway, the main feature is the model-based routing, where you can route to different models in a given AI service. Even you can do token-based rate limiting just to make sure you don't hit, you don't send out any large payloads likewise. And then there is AI guardrails. You can check for hate speech, you can check for PII issues, and likewise you can guardrail your AI services and make sure the payloads are scanned and properly you can get more out of this. And the prompt management is where you can enrich your user prompts. You can just add a system prompt to make sure and improve those user scenarios as well. And then you have the adapting routing. So there are use cases you want to utilize some model to just to consume that more than something else. Likewise, you can do round robin and failover scenarios with different models. And then you have the semantic caching, which will ensure that you have you don't basically utilize your backends, rather you can allow the gateway to respond as well. So on top of all these capabilities, we have the identity access management, which will allow you to authenticate your APIs, then observability and analytics, which will help you to identify what are your AI APIs and how they are consumed, what are their usage patterns, what is the model that has been used heavily. Likewise, you can get more AI focused analytics on that. And then on top of all these, you can do basic mediation where you can come up with your policies and have a more mediation within the AI gateway itself. So if you look at AI services right now, we have the support for OpenAI, Azure, Mistral, AWS Bedrock, Cloud. Even we can extend this to your own AI service. We have the extensibility capability where you can provide your own AI service or own LLM integration and plug with the platform. Right. So the CI/CD is one of the key aspects when it comes to developing an enterprise API management architecture. You can't just use the portals all the time if you are developing and pushing your changes to higher environments. So basic idea is that you can start with an open API. With the CTL command line tool, you can generate an API project. So the API project is a collection which consists your definition, open API, or it can be a GraphQL or async API. Likewise, then you have the API YAML, which consists your API metadata, and also you have all your API policies and your other security options. Likewise, then you have the documentation and also the certificates. So you can bundle everything into a project, and then you can also have a file which consists all your environment specific values. For example, in dev, you don't use the same key in a production environment. You want to change the keys, you want to change the endpoint. Likewise, so that's where you can use the environment variable file, which we call the params YAML, and then you can commit to Git or your source repository, which will trigger a pipeline. So the pipeline basically has several actions. It can first check your governance aspect. It can take your project and provide that project to the control plane and look for any governance violations. If the API is authenticated properly, likewise, you can check the governance aspects. And once that is done, you can deploy to your dev environment. And after that, you can basically run test and make sure your tests are passed. And then once that is done, you can promote your API to higher environments like staging, production, and likewise. So this is the high level idea when it comes to doing CI/CD for your APIs. Right, so next segment is about Bijira, where I'll focus on the MCP server management. So Bijira is an AI native scalable SaaS API and MCP server management. So we have more AI capabilities within the Bijira platform itself, and we are bringing all these capabilities to our on-prem API Manager software version as well. So starting with the Bijira, where we mainly focus on enhancing the user experience. We want to give a more fine-grained user experience for the users. That's where we have visual mapping UIs, where you have the interactive policy mappings. And then we have the unified control plane. This control plane, right now, it can manage the cloud data plane, as well as it can manage the private data planes, where the private data plane can run in your Azure account or AWS account, where you have your Kubernetes infrastructure. So this unified control plane, we are extending that to bring the support for API gateway federations, where we have the AWS gateways, Kong, or whatever the gateway that you want to run. And then also we are extending this to bring the support where it can manage and govern all your on-prem gateways as well. So this is one of the key aspects we are looking in here. And when it comes to AI for APIs, we have AI-driven capabilities where you can generate open API specification based on your user scenario. You can do testing. You can do theming based on AI by just providing your organization domain likewise. Then when it comes to APIs for AI, this is where we have the AI governance. So if you take your organizations today, probably you have tons of your English documents which basically lists down the best practices, your regulations, or whatever the mechanisms that you have when developing, or even it can be related to anything. So with Bijira, what we can basically do here is that you can onboard these English documents into Bijira, and it will basically do the validation for your API. So if you have something in English, it can validate this governance within the platform itself. And then we have the other capabilities like the ingress, egress, and API management as well. Now Bijira is having the AI gateway as well, which I talked about earlier. And very recently we introduced the MCP server management. With that you can basically extend your enterprise architecture where you can have more AI integrations as well. So Bijira is a platform that built on top of Choreo. So we wanted to give a more focus towards the API management experience, and this is one of the platforms we built on top of Choreo for that. Right, so let's move to the Bijira architecture. So we have the control plane where it has the API creation, deploy, test, manage, and observe those basic functionality when it comes to APIs. And then we have the authentication, key managers, and the developer portal as well. And when it comes to the data plane, we have ingress gateway and the egress gateway. Now egress gateway is powered with the AI gateway. So we follow the cell-based architecture, and this can be deployed in a Kubernetes environment, and then you can connect to your AI services or your other system and other services as well. So this is the high-level idea in Bijira. Right, so let's look at connect APIs to AI agents. So this is one of the key aspects with these AI agents coming into picture. So consider a situation, there is a production incident at 3 a.m. in the morning, and probably the AI agent that you have deployed have identified this incident. It checks the logs, it has sent a configuration fix or even done a proper fix. And by the time you wake up in the 8 a.m. morning, you can see a detailed Slack report saying this is the fix, this is the issue, and this is how I did this, and there is a way for you to review it. So this can be a thing we are looking at. If you look at the industry, we can see this is happening around the world today as well. So if you look at the agentic workflows and how they operate, there are 3 stages. They plan everything. So basically they take the steps that they take the instructions and generate steps based on their scenario, and based on the steps they came up with, they will execute it. Execution can be calling an API, it can be calling a third-party service, or it can be running some code as well. At the last stage, what it will do is that reflect and iterate. It will look at the results, it will identify if the results are doing great or whether it needs to improve on the results as well. And finally, it will basically go through the results and repeat this until the goal is achieved. So this is the high-level idea when it comes to how the agent operates. It takes the inputs. Inputs can be the instruction that you give. It can be some documents that you provide, and then it will look at the reasoning. Reasoning is about the knowledge it has, or the memory, which basically having your conversations, or it can be some instructions that you have discussed as well. And at the final stage, that's where the actions comes in, where it can be a tool called like API invocation or whatever the mechanism for executing this. Right. So APIs are the backbone of modern society. If you take, we have REST to GraphQL and webhooks, where we have build structures and fixed endpoint for every service, and API is not going to obsolete, but because one reason is this is the foundation. But if you are to expose APIs as tools, so you can do it in a way with if you expose those with context and right intent. But there are issues having basically exposing your APIs as is. If you take APIs, they have a rigid interfaces. If you take an API, you have the well-defined request response. For example, if AI asks something off the menu, it can't provide because it always look at the menu itself. And there are session level context as well. Sometimes AI agent is having something related to the conversation you had, but if you take APIs, you need to basically, APIs are stateless, they don't keep anything. And if for a given scenario, if I to use multiple APIs, you have to write this AI agent in a way where you have to code multiple times to map your APIs for this particular agent scenario. So this is why traditional APIs fall short for AI. So this is where we have this MCP new open standard introduced by Claude, the Anthropic. So the model context protocol is an open protocol that standardizes how application provide context to LLMs. So this acts as a universal adapter for AI agents. So the high level idea is that you have AI agent who wants to interact with Salesforce, GitHub or Discord. You have to uniquely call these APIs. But with MCP, you have a unified API. MCP will take care of the rest of the integration. So that's where we have capabilities in Bijira. So now with this, we have the MCP server management, where Bijira interface, you have the tool management. So MCP is a collection of tools where you have the tool management, you can manage the life cycle, you can add policies, and also then you can have the theming for your MCP Hub as well. So MCP Hub is a API discovery portal where you can basically visualize and basically have your MCP server catalogs there, so that any third-party application, AI agent application developers can come and discover these MCP servers. Right, so dev portal, we can convert that to MCP Hub, and the gateway is where we serve the MCP traffic. Right, so I'll quickly go through this use cases that we have when it comes to MCP server management. So there are three main use cases. Basically, the first one is, let's say you have a REST service, REST backend service. Now you want to expose this as a MCP server so that you can use these in a AI agent integration. So you can just, the first segment is that where you can provide the open API definition and convert your API into MCP server. Then on top of that, you can add descriptions, you can add names, and enrich your tool definitions. So these definitions are really useful for AI agents to understand what's the functionality of it, and basically execute these in their AI agent executions. And finally, once you are done with adding policy for your MCP server, you can push it to MCP Hub. So the second scenario is that you may already have an API proxy created for your existing application. Now, how do you convert this API proxy to an MCP server? So this is where you can bring this capability. By just one click, you can generate a MCP server for this one. And the third one is, with MCP coming into the picture, you can have your MCP servers, you can come up with your new MCP servers. Now, how you basically govern these existing MCP servers? You can bring your existing MCP servers, apply governance, apply other policies, and you can basically then push it to the MCP Hub as well. So MCP Hub is about, it's a dedicated discovery portal for AI agents. You can theme your existing developer portal into MCP Hub, where you only have the MCP servers, and we don't show you other protocols like REST, GraphQL, likewise. This is more agent-friendly approach, where you can provide agent-friendly docs as well. Right, so I'll go through the demo. So the demo 3 is about the marketing and user management engagement tenant, where I have a notification API, and then I have other MCP servers. I'll quickly go through that. Right, so I am in Bijira. So this is my organization, this is my project. So I'll start creating a MCP server. So I have this MCP server segment. So these are the three capabilities that I introduced. So just to start with the first one, where you can bring your open API definition, where you have a REST service. I'll click on that. So let me find my open API definition here, so I can get my definition. So these are the resources. This is a REST service. This is the open API definition you can see here. So I'll basically go next, and here let me give a card promotion API. So I'm going to call my card promotion just card promotion MCP. So I have the relevant information. I can give a version, and I can just create a MCP server here. Right. So this is the overview page. I can go to the policy window. So you can see that this has mapped these MCP server tools. So these are the tools you can give to AI agents. So for example, just to get the promotions, AI agent will use this view card promotion. So it will map to this backend service. So you can click on here and basically give whatever the name. Even you can update the description so that these descriptions are useful for the AI agent to understand what are the capabilities and what this tool is doing. Right. So in Bijira we have the similar experience but more improved from the user experience. You can add documentation, life cycle, and everything is there. Let me go here and basically promote this my MCP server to production. So in Bijira you can manage multiple environments and just promote your MCP server or your API proxy from one environment to other environment. And then I'll go to the life cycle of Bijira, and then basically the MCP server, I'll push this MCP server into developer portal. Right. So I have now created my card promotion MCP server. So the next step is to basically generate an MCP server from the API proxy that I already have. So this is a API proxy I already have deployed in Bijira. By just clicking here, you can create a MCP server for that. Let me call this as a notification MCP server. Then I'll create it. So if I go to the policy, still you can see how these are mapped to the resources in the API proxy. So I'll follow the same step here. So I'll promote this API to production, and then I'll push this API to developer portal as well. So we have a separate session on the third day of the conference to talk about Bijira in detail. Right, so this is, now I have pushed my MCP servers. So if I come to the listing, you can see I have the API proxy and I have the relevant MCP servers that I have created and push it to the developer portal. So let me go into the developer portal. So this developer portal again has the listing for both the MCP servers and the APIs. So I'll go to the MCP servers where you can see all these APIs. So let me go and create an application. So let me call this as a chat application. Then I'll create that application. Now I can go to the MCP servers, and this has already selected the chat application. I can subscribe to these MCP servers so that I can use these in my agent application development. So let me go to the application where it has the application listing now. These are the subscribed MCP servers, and I can also subscribe to notification API as well. Right, so I have now 3 subscriptions here, and I can generate a access token for me to basically invoke these MCP servers. So I have this chat application I have created. So my idea is to integrate these two MCP servers where I have a AI, open AI configuration. This is the brain, this is the AI service. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to configure these MCP servers and ask for card promotions. I'll show in the demo. So I'll configure these. Now agent LLM configuration is done. So this is the notifications service. Let me copy the credentials. Right, I'll go to the developer portal. Let me copy the consumer key. Let me copy the consumer secret. And I need to copy the token endpoint. So where I can take generate access token. Right, so as the last step, I need to go to relevant MCP servers and copy the server URLs. I need the card promotion and the notification server, MCP server URLs. Let me copy those. So this is the card promotion. I'll go to the other one, notification, MCP server. I'll copy the URL here. Right, now I can apply the configurations. Right, so I can have a chat window and let's say hello. Then this response is coming from the OpenAI which I have configured. So let me ask, can you check card promotions? Let me ask, check card promotions for dining. So the idea is here is that this chat application will look at basically the MCP servers that I have configured. It will identify there are two MCP servers based on the chat I provide. It will select the relevant MCP server and call that MCP server. So here I have got the results where basically it will filter my card promotions and it has identified relevant dining options. Now I can say, can you email this? So I'm going to ask to email this information to my email address. So with this, basically it will look at the other MCP server, which is the notification API, and that will, so now it has said that it has sent an email to my email. So let me check my emails here. Now here you can see the email that I have got from this chat application. So this is the idea. So basically by just having a chat interface, by just configuring these MCP servers in your chat application, you can get this to work. So this is the high level idea, how you integrate these MCP servers in a chat application or whatever the application that you create when it comes to AI agent development. So I'll go through how you basically convert your existing developer portal to a MCP hub. So the idea is that now this is the how your developer portal looks like. So I can convert, let me change the configuration where now I can convert my developer portal into MCP hub. Right, so I'll go to the theming and I'll add a logo here to have MCP hub, and then I'll go to theming where I can have a color where now let me save this and let me publish my theme to the developer portal. So in the next session we will cover how you can use AI theming here as well. So let me refresh this. Now I can just with few clicks I can convert my developer portal into MCP Hub, where you can theme based on your requirements, based on your needs, and make your MCP Hub to look like and just to list only the MCP service. So that's the high level idea in here, and we are going to conclude with the key takeaways and the next steps. So I went through basically the end-to-end API management, and we covered the core functionalities and how you apply and come up with design different deployment patterns, and also we looked at hybrid multi-cloud deployment patterns, and finally we covered the AI agent integrations, where now you can work with the MCP servers and use these MCP servers in your AI agent application development. Right, so as the next step, you can basically explore our solutions. We have WSO2 API Manager software. You can download this and run in your machine, or if you want to try out the Bijira, which is our cloud offering, you can try these URLs, and all these lab sessions that I covered in this session can be found here. Right, so these are the upcoming sessions. So the next two sessions today will be covering the end-to-end AI scenarios, how you apply in API lifecycle management, and the last lab session will cover the control plane, ingress and egress API gateway management. And on the third day, we have several talks on covering the API Manager roadmap. We'll cover the Bijira, and also we'll look at the federated gateways in detail, and also we have a session on AI gateways, and we'll cover the modernizing the enterprise architecture with APIs, and we also have a customer panel as well. Right, thank you very much.